A spider pig does. Can he swing from a web? No, he can't. He's a pig. Look out, he is a spider pig. Spider pig does whatever a spider pig does. Can he swing from a web? No, he can't. He's a pig. Look out, he is a spider pig. Spider pig.
車輪ガン。
鳥水遁水流弾の術
あの量の印を数秒で、しかも完璧に真似てやがる。
何なの？これって忍術なの？
おかしい。どういうことだ。術が発動したのはどうしてだ。もしやこいつ。
What's going on, guys? TG or Thunder God here, and with me today I got New Horizons. Say what's good, bro.
What's good, bro?
We're
What?
and today we are talking about Naruto and Sasuke. I know you love it, and more specifically, we're talking about what if they had swapped fights and a lot of key points in the story, and who would have come out with more W's, kind of like replacing their roles in a certain sense. So we'll be kind of keeping track throughout the video and keeping like count. And by the end of the video, we'll kind of like, you know, give you the total score and see who comes out with like more W's and who, if like they took each other's fights, just came out better. So that being said, check out New Horizons. You know the vibes. He's link in the description and the title, all that good stuff. And with that being said, let's get into the video. All right, so starting off, we have Naruto versus Yoroi in the Chunin exams, the first round. Now, honestly speaking, Naruto's probably gonna wash Yoroi at this point. Yoroi was like he was getting weaved out by a Sasuke who not only was fatigued from the Forest of Death. Not a lot of people like talk about this, but every character in the Chunin exam was like fatigued. Yoroi also was this Sasuke wasn't even able to like amp his base movements with his chakra. So not only is he weaving out Yoroi with like no ampage or anything at all, he can't use his Sharingan. He's like getting nerfed by the curse mark. He then proceeds to like taijutsu barrage and like body Yoroi after getting like most of his chakra absorbed. So it's just kind of like you have this really bad showing by this like sound ninja, whereas like Naruto, who like Sasuke kind of acknowledges Naruto's strength at this point in the series, who he's like going on against Kiba and like having this onslaught brawl. It's just like Naruto's much more fresh in this position. He's gonna be able to make clones, and even if Yoroi like grabbed him and like start absorbing his chakra, A, he's not going to be able to absorb all of it, or B, it just has the inverse effect, and like Naruto brings out the QB, in which case Yoroi is getting washed. So Yoroi was like not tanking blows from like a super fatigued Sasuke. So this Naruto is like outside his realm. in all aspects. So Naruto does kind of clear this round with a lot less difficulty than Sasuke had in their initial fight.
So as for like the polar, or I guess the opposite for the Chunin exam prelims would be Sasuke versus Kiba in Naruto's position. And this is going to be like Sasuke, like let's say like the computer spit out Sasuke versus Kiba. So this is going to be Sasuke just as fatigued. So basically, right, he can't use jutsu. I mean, he was like falling on the ground and stuff in the original fight. So this is actually like a very bad situation for Sasuke that he would easily win if he was 100%. But in this case, he is very down bad. So yeah, in terms of like the matchup, like Kiba is I guess he's kind of underrated among the Genin, that he's very physical, which is like the last thing that Sasuke needs here since he's so fatigued. And so basically, I really don't see, me and TG don't really see Sasuke just duking it out with Kiba kind of the way that Naruto was trying to. So like, but he did show some good signs in the original fights. But against Kiba, I don't think that's going to work because he's going against someone much more stronger. So like, for example, he was able to like copy Lee's movement and do a Lion's Barrage, but not nearly as well as Lee, because like even like Yoroi was like blocking some of the Lion's Barrage at times, and like when he went up into the air, Sasuke got paralyzed by the curse mark briefly, and that's just not going to work because like if Akamaru is in play and Akamaru is taking his pill and turned into like a Kiba clone, he's just gonna bail Sasuke out of like a Lion's Barrage, which is really like, that's really the only win condition Sasuke has in this position where he can't use jutsu at all. So surprisingly, in this situation, Sasuke is just going to lose because he simply does not have it in him at the moment to duke it out with a very physical fighter.
Yeah, so that kind of concludes like the Chunin exam, like prelims. A really bad start for Sasuke, admittedly. But moving on to round 2, we start off with like Naruto versus Gaara, right? Naruto takes Sasuke's position in the fight. And now, a lot of people will like point to Naruto's performance against Gaara in the forest. But the problem is, Naruto, like, his first instincts were to run from that fight. He doesn't think he could beat Gaara. A lot of people have, like, heard these arguments before. And on top of this, the series points to him, like, getting, like, crazy mental amps. He's like, bro, where's all this chakra coming from? You'll be as strong as you need to be. All that plot, like, contrivances that you notice or, like, is talked about. In this case, Gaara's actually going to be fighting a lot more offensively with his sand, whereas Naruto's not going to... It's going to be a completely different fight, whereas, like, Naruto, he was already intimidated by Gaara to the point where like he thought Sasuke would just get obliterated by Gaara. Maybe you could talk about like that's him projecting how he thinks like he would do against Gaara. And in this case, Gaara's just going to be fighting a lot more intelligently. He's going to be using his sand a lot more offensively, making sand clones, probably putting Naruto in a sand burial. Naruto, you can maybe argue like he makes like, they talk about like why he doesn't make more clones and like he's saving like his chakra, but in this case Naruto, like, he's just not going to be able to like breach Gaara's defenses in the same capacity. He's not going to be able to perform like the 1,000 shadow clone barrage that he was performing against Gaara in the forest of or not the forest of death, but just the random forest. And now if Naruto does like able to access like Kurama's chakra, I think that actually is a bit more interesting. I think at that point we'd see something akin to like Sasuke just blitzing around Gaara and beating him down with his sand armor. But it's still, I don't believe like Naruto like blatantly eclipsed Gaara at that point to the where like he'd absolutely be able to like break him down. Like, and this is especially true if Gaara goes into his like sand ball. Naruto has no way to breach into it with his like physical strike. So you can actually make a case that like Naruto can amp himself to kind of beat around Gaara, maybe weave around the sand if Gaara like presses him to that point. But there's no like way for Naruto to like actually take down Gaara. He doesn't really have a win condition at this point. He's not gonna summon Gamabunta in the arena, so there's none of that. So Gaara generally does come out on top. And you can even make a case in the original fight, Gaara would have also come out on top if the fight wasn't interrupted. So this is just the case where Naruto's just gonna take the L.
So I've taken, I guess your fight was pretty controversial. Mine's like age-old controversial, and Sasuke versus Neji in the Chunin exams. Yeah. So there's a lot going on here. Like you really have to read in between the lines to really see who wins here. So some of the basic stuff. So like we know at this point Sasuke is moving at Lee's speed. Like Guy says it himself. Now Sasuke doesn't quite have the stamina, like the same stamina as Lee, because like Lee notes. Or like you can see Sasuke getting much more tired than Lee, but besides from that, it's basically known that Neji is stronger than like Lee without like weights. Like we know like when they were sparring, Neji would win and things like that. And we've seen Neji take on like greater opponents, such as like Naruto with the small QB amp he had in the Naruto versus Neji fight. Now the thing is that at face value, you would think like this is a very even matchup, but when you look at Sasuke versus Gaara's fight, Sasuke is actually way above, I would say, Neji level. And that's because just by judging by how Neji reacted to Naruto versus how Sasuke reacted to Gaara. So once we see Naruto get the QB amp, he's basically like, he and Neji are kind of equally each other out, and Neji's like visibly distressed, trying to deal with like all this movement and stuff, and then they cancel out each other's attacks. And after that big explosion between the rotation and like Naruto's just QB chakra, like Neji is so tired, like you can see it, and he gets one punched. And I know some people get mad about that, but he was literally just so like hurt from that explosion that it makes sense that he was one punch away from just being done. As for Sasuke, when he fought Gaara in the forest, that version of Gaara that's partially transformed is way stronger than Naruto with that QB amp. Like you can just see by like he's running like trying to speed blitz Sasuke through the forest and then just clear cutting through several trees like it was nothing. Whereas like Naruto's just running around this arena and messing up some of like the terrain when he runs and stuff. And Sasuke is able to dodge this without his Sharingan at first, and then as Gaara continues to transform and get more powerful, he uses his Sharingan, and he even gets hit by Gaara once, which sends him flying through the forest, like way farther than the Neji was sent flying when he clashed with Naruto. And Sasuke gets up, and he's in much better shape than what Neji was when he got sent flying back, right? And also, like, we see, like, Chidori itself is combating against Naruto, or, sorry, it's even greater than Gaara's, like, attack speed or attack potency. Like, he's cutting straight through Gaara. And, like, amazing Tamari. Like, she can't even fathom that Sasuke can even do this. So, really, just because of that, like, how Sasuke dealt with a much greater threat in Gaara, like, if he comes at Neji with Chidori, I'm really not sure if rotation can block it, and I really think that if Sasuke can react to this transformed Gaara, then he can definitely react to Neji and win.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna add one thing to that. I loved everything you said, and this is literally the cherry on top, is that like Naruto like is making all these statements with the context that he can use the QB like chakra that just was on par with Neji. So it's like you hit them on the mark.
And so after that, we get into the Sannin showdown. And of course, Sasuke was like asleep during the entirety of this, so Naruto doesn't have a fight here. So I'm taking on the Sasuke versus Kabuto fight. I guess it's kind of like that, where Sasuke is basically, where Naruto was basically, because Shizune got folded by Kabuto, and then Tsunade was afraid of blood, so both of them were out of the fight. Naruto had to step up. So in this situation, we're putting Sasuke in that situation. And it's actually funny that even though like these two are supposed to be at least relative during this time, Sasuke does way worse in this situation. And I think that the reason why is like when we're examining like these two fighters, Sasuke is very analytical, like quick thinking. He can very easily craft a defense and like decipher his opponents. Where Naruto needs a bit more time usually, but he can create much more outside of the box thinking like offenses, just if you like analyze all their fights. So in this fight, Naruto he saw that Kabuto's arm was too damaged because he made it bleed out to scare Tsunade. And so he literally made Kabuto sacrifice his other arm by letting Kabuto just stab through his hand completely and then grabbing onto his hand. I don't think Sasuke would have any type of thinking like that. Like he's never really showed like that type of abstract thinking. He's more analytical. Like I would think that he would be trying to use like fire style and shuriken and stuff to create like some type of opening to Yushidori. Like he was doing that when he fought Naruto at the final valley. And in this situation, like if you're just coming at Kabuto with Chidori, it's just not going to work because he's, as Jiraiya said, on Kakashi's level. And when Naruto first tried to go at Kabuto, it just didn't work because they're just not like these are just getting here. They're not dealing with like someone like as powerful as Kabuto. So strangely enough, Sasuke loses pretty hard here.
Yeah, and then that's actually like the only fight that happens in like the Sannin showdown, at least in Naruto's case. So we actually move into like the Sasuke retrieval arc, in which case we have Final Valley Naruto against the Sound Four, which is like kind of the fight Sasuke took on before the village. And I'm gonna be honest, you might say like here's the logic, right? Obviously, Naruto does have a lot at this point. He can like if he gets like the Kyuubi chakra, he can do like the multi-shadow clones that were like surrounding Kimimaru, so and he's like on par with like Sasuke's base form and like the Final Valley. So Naruto's like pretty strong, and this is like Sasuke like after he gets amped by like the curse mark, like Naruto's able to kind of like throw ones with him. So Naruto like is pretty strong at this point. Even his Kyuubi chakra is like able to completely dismantle like Sasuke with the curse mark and all that. But the problem is like the Sound 4 actually just have like too many hacks. Like you can make an argument Tayuya herself might be is honestly a GG at this point, as her genjutsu is just gonna wipe. Naruto has no way of breaking free from it. And when you couple this with the fact that like each of the Sound 4 have like all their unique abilities, like for example, right, Jirobo could like place Naruto into that earth pillar as like that drains his chakra as Tayuya sets up the genjutsu. Like the problem with the Sound 4 is that like Naruto and his squad members, there was like almost an intervention at each one to like talk about how they were gonna beat him. Like each sound member would stall the group, and then like the only way for them to advance was for one member to kind of like sacrifice themselves. And each of the Sound 4 members like also have different things. Like Sakon and Ukon can like start attacking, while Kimimaru just goes over and starts shooting arrows and stuff like that. Like it's ridiculous what they can do and the amps they get. Like they all have such diverse arsenals that maybe you could say like Naruto should have like 1v1 like them for this spot. And while I will grant you that, it's my video, shut up. Sasuke did have to fight the four of them, and he lost. So I'm giving Naruto a stronger case here. But honestly, like he's not going to be able to do anything against the Sound 4. Even if you argue like he's like stronger than them, quote unquote, like their abilities are going to overwhelm him very quickly. They all have, like there's just way too much. It's way too diverse at this point. So yeah, Naruto kind of gets washed, unfortunately.
Yeah, and so as for the other Sasuke retrieval arc fight, for Sasuke's case, we're putting Sasuke in Naruto's position against Kimimaru. So basically, he's going to chase Kimimaru into that field, and then if he stalls long enough, Lee will show up, and then if he stalls even longer, then Gaara will show up. And basically, the win condition is just defeat Kimimaru, or at least like get past Tatum, or I guess Kimimaru will eventually die either way. So anyway, Sasuke versus Kimimaru has also always been like an interesting parallel. Like even like part 1 Sasuke and stick Kimimaru, and like heavy Sasuke and a potentially healthy Kimimaru. Since these are two of Orochimaru's favorites. Like they both have the special curse marks. I forget the exact name. Like these two stand out from the rest, right? And so in this situation, one way to compare them is like, so Kimimaru went against Naruto with just like the Kyuubi amp, where it just changes Naruto's eyes. So it's like the smallest Kyuubi amp. And he went in against 1,000 clones and easily defeated or like over 1,000 clones, easily defeated them without using any curse mark. Now for Sasuke, and this is 3 Tomoe Sasuke, by the way, when Sasuke was facing the same type of amp with Naruto, he did just as well. Granted, he was only fighting one, but of course, I mean, shadow clones are weaker than the user. But anyway, so we're seeing like they're doing just as well against like the same fighter, and they also have the same amp. Like their curse marks are supposed to be basically the same, or have the same amount of multiplier, I guess. So it's kind of interesting in that sense. Now, as for how the fight would go, I would think they would both just like try to fight with like taijutsu and stuff, and then once Sasuke starts bringing out like his own ninjutsu, and then Kimimaru is going to start bringing out the curse mark, and that's going to keep feeding into each other. But then eventually Lee is going to show up and like start using the drunken fist and stuff, and so that's just going to help Sasuke. And then once Gaara shows up, like it doesn't really matter what happens because Kimimaru ends up losing just fighting Gaara. So Sasuke there is just overkill. And so basically, I'm not exactly sure if this was like a one-on-one who would win, assuming that Kimimaru just dropped dead. But I definitely think Sasuke is strong enough to stall long enough for help to come and win.
And next up, we have Naruto Shippuden, the sequel. You should watch it if you haven't. I don't know if you watched it, bro. But it's this is serious, bro. Don't laugh. But it's we have Sasuke taking Naruto's spot against Kabuto, or not Kabuto, Kakazu, with Team 7. You know, like, just because I'm gonna be honest, Naruto's really like he fights against like Orochimaru in you know, early Shippuden, which is like that's a waste of a fight in our opinion. Like, that's a waste of a slot. And the other fights like against Sasuke, Kakazu being like his big fight. So Sasuke will take the place of Naruto like when, you know, he arrives on the battlefield. In which case, Sasuke's gonna have the support of Yamato and Kakashi as a fallback while he makes errors. Because in the original fight, you know, Naruto's making he had a couple blunders for like with Yamato and like Kakashi kind of being like guardrails for him. And this isn't even talking about the fact that like Ino and Choji are also present in the battlefield. So it's just like he has a lot of like basis, and it kind of gets into like, okay, Sasuke, you know, let's say that Sasuke wants to 1v1 Kakazu, right? What is he going to be able to like take down Kakazu's hearts? I think this kind of gets into, you know, because I think a lot of people are going to probably say this, like Sasuke's standard arsenal might not be enough for Kakazu at this point. In which case, like, also base Naruto's leaving out Kakazu, Sasuke also can. In which case, Sasuke probably will rely on his like ace technique Kirin. He even the reason I say he also might bring it up is because he even considered like bringing it up against Deidara, and he had like the best matchup versus Deidara. So imagine what he would do against somebody who was like actually pressuring him. In which case, this kind of gets into like Rasen Shuriken versus Kirin. The way I always interpret it, and New Horizons kind of agrees with me. Like, these both are like, at this point in the series, like, they're narratively implied to be like similar power in terms of techniques. A lot of anime filler depicts it as such as well. Like, Sasuke's like Infinite Tsukuyomi Dream like shows like Kirin and like Rasen Shuriken being equal levels and stuff like that. So, you know, if you take that along with like Kirin being in like elemental advantage, or at least in the sense that Kakazu can't use his like diamond hardening, then like you could say like that would wipe out Kakazu. If not, like it would just take out one of his hearts, since it can't attack on that level. But at that point, you know, Kakashi and Yamato could always jump in, as well as the fact that Sasuke doesn't really have to expend too much chakra or can manually do Kirin. So not to like abridge the Sasuke fight, but I do believe like Sasuke would jump to that point just because like Kakazu fused himself with his hearts, and he's like on this crazy level of like where they're like, okay, we got to step in. I'm about to use Kamui, all of this stuff. So it takes him out with Kirin, which would eliminate one of his hearts, in which case, you know, he would just fight alongside Kakashi and Yamato, who at that point they would just be able to overwhelm Kakazu.
Yeah, and just one more thing to say about like potentially doing like a Tenchi Bridge fight with Orochimaru. Orochimaru and Kabuto say like they're not trying to kill any Leaf Shinobi because they need them to go deal with the Akatsuki. So it wouldn't really make sense to put Sasuke in a fight that he can't lose. And same deal with like, we're not doing Sasuke versus Itachi with Naruto replacing Sasuke because you can't lose that fight either. But anyway, the next fight is one Naruto can lose, which is Naruto versus Deidara and I guess Tobi a little bit. So, and this is going to be like the Naruto at that time. So this is like post Rasen Shuriken, right before Sage Mode training.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is definitely like Naruto is not. This was like the point of the series where Sasuke was way stronger than Naruto, like all the way, like almost as bad as like back in the Land of Waves arc. And so Naruto's just not doing well here. There's no other way to put it. So like we saw like even when Deidara was just messing around with him in the Kazekage retrieval arc, Naruto didn't really have any way to close the distance. Now it is possible, like I've said several times, like maybe he can use his Toad summon since they have hops basically, and like harass Deidara. But like, I mean, Deidara can deal with like Gaara Sand pretty well, and Deidara is being very cautious with Gaara. So I don't think the Toads are going to be enough. And then, so it's basically like, how is Naruto going to get into the air? Like maybe he can use like a Shadow Clone ladder or something, but I don't see that working very well. And then if Tobi like starts setting landmines, he's going to be screwed. So like when Sasuke first stepped on the landmine, he was able to mitigate it by instantly turning on the curse mark and flying upwards, whereas Naruto doesn't have that choice. So really, I don't really think I have to say much about this. It's just like, you know, Naruto, if Sasuke was being pushed to his absolute limit here and he had a very favorable matchup, there's no way this version of Naruto can win.
Yeah. Just a quick note to add on to that too, like Deidara is like blowing off like Sasuke's like curse mark wings, which are like blocking like curse mark 2 Jugo's punches, and like Jugo's crazy in of himself, so it's like Deidara is performing these kind of feats, like Naruto might just like the explosions are gonna be too much. So yeah, I agree. And then Oh God, we're here. We're at 5 August. We made it.
So, and then we get to like kind of like, I guess the Pain invasion, and I guess right before that was Naruto versus B. But anyway, as for Sasuke's fight for this round, we're gonna be putting him against Pain when Naruto shows up. So there's a lot of circumstances to that fight that people kind of overlook. So like Sasuke is going to have a lot of intel, and then Pain is also going to be fatigued after blowing up the Leaf Village. Like the Diva Path was totally powerless for several chapters, and that allowed for Naruto just to like methodically pick the lesser paths off one by one. But anyway, in this situation, the way I look at like, you know, and I guess some with Sasuke and Sage with Naruto, those are like, that's like the age-old rivalry, age-old question. I've always looked at them as like rivals, but Sasuke is way, his arsenal is way better for like sprints. And in this situation, I see it as a sprint to defeat all the lesser paths before the Diva Path comes back. And so, like, when we saw like in the Sasuke versus Danzo fight, obviously like his stamina doesn't really compare to like his attack power, but he was killing Danzo like over and over and over in succession, and then like tiring himself out and then killing him over and over and over. It's like once he starts going off, it's scary because these lesser paths of pain don't equal Danzo. Like Danzo's definitely stronger than like one of the lesser paths of pain. And so basically like if the summon, like the animal summons aren't going to do anything to the Susanoo, right? Amaterasu is a problem for everyone except for like the Preta path. And it's just like if Sasuke's shooting Susanoo arrows and like Kakashi has to Kamui to deal with them, Danzo can't hardly deal with them at all, like almost not at all. And like Danzo died, I don't know, like at least 6 or 7 times just to the Susanoo itself. And so in this situation, like the lesser paths are not going to be able to break the Susanoo defense. Like they just don't have the power to do that. And so, since Sasuke is perfectly protected here, he doesn't have to be super methodical like Naruto had to be. He can just like literally just shoot Susanoo arrows and swing his Susanoo around, tire himself out. And I think that he can do this fast enough, way faster than Naruto, because by the time the Diva Path came back, there was only 2 paths left. And in this situation, I think Sasuke is just going to have his way with the lesser paths and then defeat the Diva Path, who will be powerless, and then just be totally like he'll be ready to collapse after that. It'll be like a high difficulty fight, but I definitely think he has this.
And then, you know, I agree. The inverse of that is Naruto. You know, I for the sake of this discussion, I'll give Naruto, you know, I'll give him the scroll with the Sage mode clones. You know, I'll give him that. He can have that. Against Killer B, you know, when B just gets done lifting weights, comes back from his workout, he comes out, he's like, oh man, I'm gonna get some sake, yo. And he comes out, and then that Naruto's gonna fight that B. Now, but essentially, you know, this is a pretty interesting fight, especially since like I think it somewhat depends on like how much B takes Naruto seriously, because B was so much stronger than like the entirety of Taka that he kind of like didn't take them seriously and like proceeded to like toy with them a little bit by fighting in base. Now, if B does like try to tag Naruto in base, now I don't think he's tagging him, especially if like I don't think it's possible that he's gonna like breach Naruto's Sage mode with like his regular blades, especially if he starts it like Sasuke, because he doesn't even enhance his blades with Raito. He just like swings them around. So Naruto might just actually start breaking his blades, in which case like B might enhance them with like a lightning style. In which case, you know, obviously, I don't know. I think it's a bit more questionable if they're gonna hit Naruto, especially if Kisame is also able to avoid them. In which case, like, B would more than likely power up against this version of Naruto. I will say, too, Naruto at this point does have a lot that could take down B. His Rasengan variants, even, like, a lot of his physical blows. He's a lot of strong, like, AP at this point. You know, Rasen Shuriken's obviously a GG. Version 1B also might not perform that well against Naruto just due to his movements being linear, especially if, like, an inferior Sasuke is also, like, able to tap B's head and, like, flip himself around. So you could maybe make some like infer some things about this, but essentially what this fight boils down to is like, if you think B like loses before he goes into the full 8 tails, I'll say this, and I've talked about this like on my channel before. B like transforms depending on like what he perceives the threat to be, and his transformation speeds are instant. So if he does like see the Rasen Shuriken, I believe he's gonna be able to dodge it because B is pretty like even his lower stages, he's on par with like the Raikage. And even in the war arc, he's a rival to him in base. He's gonna be able to dodge it, and if he does deem like Naruto is that swole, he's just gonna power up into his full 8 tails and just proceed to wipe Naruto. I think it's extremely questionable if like Naruto would even be able to damage the 8 tails with the Rasen Shuriken at this point. I think it's a little bit more debatable. Kind of gets into if you think the Rasen Shuriken's as strong as the 8 tails Beast Bomb. Not gonna get into that for that video, but that's kind of what gets down to. Especially since like in the Kisame fight, B's first instinct was to go into full 8 tails, not even version 2. So I think in this scenario, if he's not playing with the group, or like he deems Naruto's like threat level is that high, he's just gonna go into full 8 tails and wipe him. So even with the additional clones, it doesn't really change too much because B just powers up, like his power-ups are so ridiculous that, you know, Sage Mode does offer a lot of hacks, and I think Naruto could damage B. I think there's just a speed disparity here at this point. So that's what I'll say on that. So next up, we also have Naruto in Sage Mode, just Sage Mode, no additional clones this time or scroll, versus Danzo. You know, the same Danzo that Sasuke fought when he removes like the gauntlet, the icy drip on his arm. In which case, me and New Horizons were like talking about this, but like I'm a little iffy on it. He feels a little more strongly towards Naruto, so we're gonna kind of like both talk on this point, and just kind of come to some type of consensus for the people. But I guess I'll start off. So the reason I'm a little less, I'm a little iffy on the Sage Mode Naruto point is just because like due to the nature of Sage Mode, like it's harder for me to digest that Naruto would be able to like continuously kill Danzo over a 10-minute period. Without his Sage Mode running out. I just don't think the timer is that long, especially if he uses Rasen Shuriken. And it's not as if like Danzo's base stats are weak, as he's like very comparable to Sasuke's base stats, the 5 Kage Summit. He's able to weave the Susanoo. So I think there is a case that he could potentially pressure Naruto to use the Rasen Shuriken. Even with like him having his own summons that could like, you know, suck in and change the area and stuff like that. He's got some really solid Suiton. So I think there is a great possibility Naruto might waste his Rasen Shurikens. Now, while I say that, there's also a possibility he could make a clone that Danzo can't see, since Shisui's eye is recharging. He won't be able to notice the clone. So I think it's up in the air. I just think Danzo has a lot going for him. What do you think? Talk to the people, bro. Educate me.
So I'm a little bit more favorable towards Naruto because I think that, like, definitely if he's just running in with no clones, running out of Sage Mode is going to be very dangerous for him. Like when he ran out of Sage Mode against Pain, like he was able to briefly hold his own in Taijutsu against like the Demon Path, but whenever he's very vulnerable when he's not in Sage Mode, when he's fighting like this caliber of fighter. I do think that is possible, and I guess it's like totally theoretical. Like he could just summon some clones and tell them to like just go run away so that he can just unsummon them and replenish his Sage Mode when he needs to. Like there's not much, like if he makes like, I don't know, like 100 clones, is Danzo really gonna kill all 100 of them? I don't think so, but that's getting a little hypothetical. But this is definitely kind of like the same case. And I was comparing like Sasuke and Naruto with the Pain fight. Like Naruto is much more of a marathon runner at this stage, and Danzo is a marathon runner, right? Like because he had CK, he basically has 10 lives. So I think that because Naruto and Sasuke are so much of rivals at this point, but Naruto has the far greater edge on endurance. I just think in that general way, I can see Naruto having a strong case of winning here, especially if he can set up some Sage Mode Shadow clones to like run away.
Yeah, and I like that you brought up like he could make a bunch of clones, because not a lot of people realize that, because he only does it versus the Nine Tails, but if he did it against anybody else, it would be ridiculous. Like that's why I didn't do it against the Pain fight, because he had clones already waiting. So you know, there's always that restriction. Maybe you could say like if he does go to collect more nature energy, he can't do that sort of feat. He can only summon 3 or 4 clones. So I do agree. I think the edge goes to Naruto. I think it's just a little like, I think it's a little more debatable, but I think, you know, there is a decent case for on both sides. But I'm gonna agree with New Horizons here and give the edge to Naruto.
And then we get to the war arc, and so we're going to be talking about the first fight. It's going to be putting Sasuke in Naruto's position against Obito when basically Naruto rolled up with B and confronted Obito with the Edo Jinchuriki. We're just going to be putting Sasuke in that position. And basically we're going to be saying that the win condition is basically just get rid of the Jinchuriki and force Obito to start summoning the Ten Tails. But anyway, I think that Sasuke is in some ways and this is, by the way, this is the EMS Sasuke that fought against Kabuto. So not like the one that has like a perfect Susanoo fighting Jubito or anything. I definitely do think that KCM1 Naruto is generally stronger than this Sasuke, just because Sasuke's eyes, his EMS is so underdeveloped here, but Sasuke's matchup is far better in this situation. But like when we see when we see the Edo Jinchuriki first start out, they're basically just showing all their hacks, and because Naruto and B aren't that analytical, they don't really know what they're doing. Like they're overwhelmed like the entire time, and then the A-Tails decides to just level the entire forest so they can get rid of that clearing, or so they can have better line of sight. But anyway, in this position, Sasuke is way more analytical. He can think much faster and make counter offenses much faster. And the biggest advantage he has here is his defense and in the Susanoo. So once the hacks start coming out, like lava release, like bubbles, whatever it may be, like he can throw up the Susanoo and just think and just be safe, right? And then the Susanoo itself is its own monster that the Jinchuriki are going to have to deal with. Of course, they do have the benefit of being Edo, so they can replenish from getting hit by like a Susanoo arrow. But anyway, I do see like Sasuke he'll be fine up to the point that I do think that the A-Tails will still say we need to eliminate the forest so they don't have like the environmental advantage. But anyway, after that, we see some of the tailed beasts. They start transforming into version 2 and then into full tailed beasts like one by one. But this is the case where kind of like when we were talking about Naruto versus Killer Bee on Sasuke's position, Sasuke was lucky that B became the A-Tails, because that basically just became a giant Amaterasu target. Like he kind of got bailed out in that way, in the same way that if these Jinchuriki start turning into full-tailed beast, Sasuke is just going to instantly Amaterasu them, because he knows that Obito needs all 9-tailed beasts to summon the 10 tails. And I think Obito would know this as well, so I think he would be hesitant to just fully transform them, because the tailed beasts aren't Edo Tensei, they're actually alive. So if one of those tailed beasts die before they get put into the 10 tails, then the whole plan, the whole Infinite Tsukiyomi is broken. And I definitely think that this Sasuke can easily Amaterasu at least one tailed beast, if a much weaker one can Amaterasu the A-Tails. And Obito can't really do anything about helping them. But anyway, because of that, they're just going to stay in version 2 like the entire time, and then Kakashi and Guy are going to show up. And like Kakashi and Guy were holding their own briefly against like several version 2, and then you have version 2 Jinchuriki here. Then you have like the whole A-Tails helping you. You have Sasuke Susanoo, you have Amaterasu. There's just too much for just version 2. Like they need full tailed beast here, but the Amaterasu just being hacks itself is preventing that. So basically, I think that Obito is going to realize he's going to have to cut his losses and put all the tailed beasts into the Gadomazu, and just like originally start summoning the 10 tails. And so we declare that like a W.
And the other matchup is if like KCM1 Naruto and Itachi go to fight Kabuto. I'm gonna be honest, like I think Naruto in this situation takes Sasuke's role pretty easily, just because we're gonna have the KCM1 Naruto that fought Obito, to be clear for all you people watching, and Itachi fight Kabuto Sage Mode. In which case, it's weird to say, but this slot almost like doesn't really matter, just because I'm not gonna say it doesn't matter, but like the thing is, like Sasuke was just more so getting babied in that fight by Itachi. Like Itachi was protecting him and whatnot. Like I could easily see the fight starting out the same, Itachi protecting Naruto as Kabuto goes for him to capture him, or maybe he goes to like plant the tag, and it would just, the outcome would be the same as it was in the original fight. He'd go for Sasuke, in which case the fight would continue. And the only thing you really have to argue for Naruto at this point is he going to be able to defend against Itachi's like Sage Mode like techniques? That being, the cave constructs, inorganic animation, the sound 4 techniques. Maybe you could argue to Yuya's Genjutsu. That could potentially be a win condition, which would affect the matchup. The sound 4 Yuya Genjutsu might be an issue for Itachi, just because he did need Sasuke to like break him out of it. Maybe you could argue he would have broken through it just like via like the standard of the Sharingan, and Sasuke being there was actually quicker. which I think is fine. It just worked for both of them much easier. In which case, you know, Naruto really just fills the same role. All he has to really do is like defend against Kabuto's attacks with his Rasen Shuriken variants and stall out for Itachi to complete the Izanami. Not too much actually changes. You know, maybe you could argue like Naruto like loses or like he gets caught, but at this point Naruto's actually really mobile with like his KCM chakra. He can you know, he's able to sense like the hatred. So even if he maybe gets blinded or can't see where Kabuto is, because Kabuto like liquidates and like flies through the cave, he actually should have a great deal of like threat perception due to that. So not too much changes, just because like Itachi was carrying this fight regardless in the opening. Maybe you could say some strategies change, but Itachi would just allocate the strategy to Phil like Naruto. Like Naruto would just literally do whatever Itachi told him. So this spot should be a W just due to the fact that Itachi was holding back and he was able to do this against Kabuto with Sasuke, who didn't really do too much in the fight aside from just follow Itachi's orders. So yeah, and so we went through all these matchups. You know, we talked about all this, you know, and keep in mind, you know, we did have to keep this something brief. So if there's certain parts we missed in certain matchups, sorry about it. But we have the score. We're going to keep up tally. So for Naruto, it's 3 W's and 4 losses. It's 3-4. And for Sasuke, it's 5 W's and 2 losses, which we didn't encounter. We didn't figure that out until we had to keep people in mind, give you perspective. That score did not come about until we like came up with the answers and like discussed it amongst ourselves. Then we're like, oh yeah, let's count score. We still have to do that. So Naruto's like a little more even, whereas Sasuke just does wash a lot of fights. And I don't think that's a result of like Sasuke being out. It's more so a result of Sasuke just being superior to Naruto for a good portion of the series. You know what I'm saying? And him, you know, just being better at a lot of matchups. Whereas where Sasuke loses, like he just really loses. And Naruto like is just not suited to a lot of people Sasuke fights. Sasuke fights a lot of hacks people. Like Deidara is a good example. Like Deidara has like way too much for Naruto, wrong opponent. So do you have any closing thoughts? Anything like that?
Nah, it's just like like you said, you gotta keep in mind like for half of part 1, Sasuke was like a whole tier above Naruto, and then like the first half of part 2, it was the same case. So like half this series, Sasuke is just stronger, so it can be expected that Sasuke would have a better win record here, and it's only by 2 wins. I was honestly expecting it to almost be worse if we had done more fights. Yeah,
and you know, obviously, like we maybe could have chosen some better fights. So there's different fights. We just try to like line it up at similar points in the series. If you don't like that, shut up. Go like the video. I'm playing, but that's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Check out New Horizons if you did, and I'll catch you next time. Bye bye.
This video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. One of the most common talking points in the Naruto fandom is Itachi, specifically Itachi's chakra sickness. See, this unnamed, undescribed, and undefined illness is known to have nerfed Itachi for the entirety of his lifetime. Combine that with the fact that he only had a regular Mangekyo Sharingan that he overused and abused, which slowly but surely chipped away at his remaining life, we as a fandom feel as though we never truly got to see the full potential of Itachi and what he could achieve in terms of power. And honestly, this is fair. In the aftermath of Itachi's battle against Sasuke, Obito pretty much lays it bare out for us. That not only in Itachi's fight against Sasuke was he holding back, just hoping to pull out Orochimaru so he could seal him out of his brother, but also that during that fight, Itachi had only been holding on to the shreds of life he had remaining, using medicine to abate his terminal illness and chipping away at the usefulness of that medicine by using his MS more. But because we as a fandom feel as though we haven't seen the entirety of Itachi's strength, we happen to ask the questions like, what would he have been like without the terminal illness, or even what would he have been like with EMS? And considering the fact that Itachi killed his father, who was a Mangekyo Sharingan wielder, at least in the anime, him having EMS was never out of the question. And I don't think any of us can deny that if Itachi didn't have this terminal illness and even possibly had EMS, his strength would have been undeniable, possibly putting him in the realm of conversation with people like Madara, or maybe not. To find out exactly how strong he would be with both EMS and no terminal illness, you're gonna have to wait till the end of the video. So with no further ado, let's get into how strong would Itachi be without his illness and with EMS. And before we get into explaining anything, guys, please, for me, Like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And we can't talk about my strength as a content creator without my other YouTube page, ladies and gentlemen, which is the Weeb Commander, where instead of talking Naruto, I talk any other anime. Been talking a lot of Fire Force recently, having fun with it. I don't know about you guys, but I know I certainly grew up as a little bit of a collector. Anytime I could get my hands on a pack of Pokemon cards, Yu-Gi-Oh cards, I jumped on that opportunity. But honestly, as I've grown older, I've been looking for the rush of opening that first booster pack of the day. That is, until now. You see, Raid Shadow Legends with its 600 different champions and endless amount of artifacts that you can equip to those champions gives you billions of different ways to raid your way. Because of the almost endless amount of combinations you can have on your team, there is years of content on Raid Shadow Legends. And it's the first game that's made me feel as though I'm opening up that first booster pack of Pokemon cards after school. And I want to show you guys a little bit of that joy as we go to open some shards in Raid right now. Raid was nice enough to hook me up with 20 ancient shards, 5 void shards, and 5 sacred shards. So let's open up these sacred shards and possibly get a legendary hero. Let's go ahead and open our second one here. It's looking like we got a legendary. Oh my goodness, Crypt King Grawl. Our second ever shard we open and we get a legendary support. Let's see if we can pull another legendary. Okay, we got another epic. Oh, I love the way this guy looks. Jorojin. This guy's design is incredible. Man, I can't believe some of the characters we got. I mean, look at this legendary I got. He's got over 7,000 health. And while he's absolutely being added to the team, a couple of these heroes I pulled might need to end up as food. That they're too powerful for the universe and therefore their existence will make the writing kind of lazy? Is because Kishimoto has no idea how to kill them off otherwise? Or is it simply just an unfortunate reoccurring event? Regardless of the reason of why Itachi was nerfed, he was undeniably nerfed. While we never get the true details on what Itachi's chronic illness was, in fact, we never even truly get a full confirmation that he had said chronic illness. It's more just loosely implied by Obito, who implied he was taking medicine to keep himself alive. The true, more acceptable, widely understood nerf is the fact that Itachi, over the course of his years in the Akatsuki, heavily overuses Mangekyo Sharingan. See, it's widely known that using an MS makes you go blind. We've seen it in Kakashi, Sasuke, and Itachi, who was almost fully blind at the time of his death. However, there's other detriments that go along with using an MS, and that is that it takes an incredibly heavy toll on your life force, or your chakra. We're not exactly sure to the degree that using an MS technique degrades your health, but we know that using MS techniques doesn't feel good. When people like Kakashi or Sasuke before he got EMS or Itachi use their MS techniques, their eyes bleed. And Sasuke himself said that using the Susanoo feels as though every single cell in your body is being lit aflame. And thus, while the power granted by a Mangekyo Sharingan is undeniably one of the strongest power-ups in the entirety of Naruto, it's also one of the most dangerous movesets to use. To really, genuinely talk about how strong Itachi could have been, we have to talk about how strong he was. We can't set the ceiling until we understand the floor. And by understanding Itachi's weaknesses in either nullifying or scaling them higher in accordance to his power-up, we can then begin to understand how strong Itachi would have been with these power-ups. So Itachi, from an incredibly young age, was a very impressive ninja. At the age of 4, he was brought out to a battlefield of the Third Great Shinobi World War by his father, Fukaku. And while attempting to give water to one of the enemy shinobi who was calling out for water, the enemy shinobi attacked Itachi, to which Itachi's body moved defensively almost preternaturally against this enemy shinobi, cutting him down in the blink of an eye. And even though this enemy shinobi was significantly injured, he was a 4-year-old child. Itachi himself seemed surprised after he cut the Iwa shinobi's neck, almost as though his body reacted to the threat of the Iwa shinobi without him even telling it to, which from a very early age speaks to one of Itachi's most powerful assets, his reaction time, something that would only get stronger with the use of his Sharingan a couple years later. But before Itachi even awoke his Sharingan 2 years after he went onto the battlefield, Naruto was born and Kurama was released. On the night of Kurama's release, he was destroying the village. And Itachi's family, specifically Mikoto, his mother, while fleeing Kurama, was about to be crushed by debris. Now mind you, Mikoto is a Jonin with a 3-Tomei Sharingan. Combat and skills-wise, she's probably comparable to Kurenai or Asuma, and yet this debris was so large and coming so quickly that it was gonna kill Mikoto. That is until, of course, Itachi reacted to it and destroyed it before it could. At 6 years old, possibly at that time giving Itachi, even prior to having a Sharingan, a reaction speed faster than somebody with a 3-Tomei Sharingan. And obviously his reaction speed, power, agility, dexterity, and all of that only got more powerful when he awoke his Sharingan at the age of 8. after watching Obito cut down his Genin squad. And what's truly wild is we've really never seen Itachi with a 1-Tomei Sharingan. The first time we see Itachi with a Sharingan, it's 2-Tomei, which means it's a solid possibility that Itachi just skipped straight to 2-Tomei. Regardless of his Sharingan though, even before Itachi became a Genin, he got the second highest ever exam score in the Ninja Academy. The only other person with a higher score than him being Minato. And after becoming a Genin, he took on the Chunin exams by himself and gained the fastest ever time of completion in the Forest of Death. A time which was later beat by Gaara, but still at the current time, the fastest ever time through the Forest of Death. And he did it alone. And then in the final phase of the Chunin exams, Itachi found himself up against an opponent who fought while asleep. Think of Zenitsu, essentially. The problem with somebody who's heavily reliant on the use of genjutsu fighting somebody who's asleep is that his eyes were closed. And this boy, while fighting asleep, was actually an incredibly potent enemy, being able to keep Itachi at bay. And this is arguably the first time that we see Itachi's battle IQ kick into gear. Because Itachi, instead of panicking or even trying something stupid, realized that the boy would wake up occasionally to see how the battle was going and then fall back asleep to continue fighting. So Itachi decided that whenever the boy would wake up, he would cast him into a terrible genjutsu that displayed him dying slowly. And Itachi did this every single time the boy woke up, until eventually he broke the psyche of the boy and the boy had to forfeit while screaming. Is it a bit brutal? Absolutely. Did it win the fight? Also absolutely. Itachi's strength was so undeniable in the final round of the Chunin exams that the majority of his opponents just forfeited. In Itachi Shinden and Itachi's light novels, we get an even further look into Itachi's power as a young kid, as the stories detail Itachi's time in the Anbu. And a lot happens in these years in the Anbu. At one point, Itachi and Kakashi find themselves up against Obito in a fight. Obito is trying to kill the Fire Daimyo, and the threat of both Kakashi and Itachi fighting against Obito actually makes Obito retreat. On top of that, Obito and Shisui, as 12 and maybe 14-year-olds, find themselves in combat against an Anbu captain with a Byakugan. His name is Mukai Kohinata, and he's been selling the secrets of the leaf, and thus Danzo wants him dead. And while saying that Itachi is the one that won this fight is a stretch, it was Shisui who used his MS Genjutsu ability to essentially make Mukai Kohinata cut his own stomach open. Arguably, he wouldn't have been put into that situation without Itachi being there. And mind you, this was an Anbu captain. That is the highest rank you can hold in Konoha, outside of Hokage, obviously. I mean, Hiruzen and Danzo actually had to fudge Itachi's age on his birth certificate so that Itachi could become an Anbu captain at the age of 12 years old. And then obviously, just a couple of short years after becoming an Anbu captain, Itachi was able to kill his entire clan. Now, while at this moment, Itachi did have his Monkey Kill Sharingan, because he got his Monkey Kill Sharingan after killing Shisui. He didn't kill Shisui. He basically just finished the job for Danzo. We don't really see him relying too heavily on his Monkey Kill Sharingan on the night of the Uchiha massacre. We never see Susanoo pop out of anywhere. There's no black flames burning around the Uchiha compound. And while he does cast Sasuke into Tsukiyomi, he kills the majority of the Uchiha fighters relatively quickly and painlessly, moving so much faster and efficiently than them that he doesn't even have to use his MS abilities. The only person that Itachi really took his time with was Yashiro Uchiha, since Yashiro made Fugaku be the leader of the coup and made Shisui spy on Itachi. But even against Yashiro, who he wanted to make suffer, he didn't use his MS abilities. And while technically it stated that if Fugaku fought back against Itachi, it would have been a battle of MSs, thus implying if Fugaku wanted to, he probably could have made Itachi have to use his MS. But more than anything, basically solidifies that there was nobody within the Uchiha who made Itachi go 100% all out. Meaning that this 14-year-old, without even tapping into the highest amount of his power, was able to kill an entire fighting force of the Uchiha who believed they were strong enough to overthrow Konoha. And while you can say, yes, it was a surprise feat though, mind you, the entirety of the Uchiha clan was within the Uchiha compound. It wasn't like Itachi was popping around from house to house slitting throats as people slept. The second the battle started in this rather large compound, every single fighting person within the Uchiha clan was mobilized against Itachi, and they lost. And then obviously after the Uchiha massacre, Itachi joins the Akatsuki, where at the age of 16, he defeats Orochimaru. And while this is far from the strongest iteration we've seen of Orochimaru, the feat is still impressive nonetheless. Not to mention after the death of Hiruzen, when Itachi wanted to make sure that Danzo knew that Itachi was still out there, and if Danzo tried to lay a hand on Sasuke, he would very much kill him, Itachi returns to the Hidden Leaf. And upon returning to the Hidden Leaf, Itachi comes into combat against Kakashi, Asuma, and Kurenai, all of which he completely smokes. Without using his Susanoo or Amaterasu, he does use Tsukiyomi against Kakashi. And it's actually in Itachi's battle against Kurenai that we see one of the most powerful genjutsu abilities ever used. And it's not Tsukiyomi or Kodo Matsukame, it's called the reversal of heaven and earth. You know the moment when Itachi says that level of genjutsu doesn't work on me and he flips the genjutsu back onto Kurenai? That's an ability of his. He has the ability to flip a genjutsu back on anybody trying to cast it on him, assuming that his genjutsu prowess is higher than that of the person trying to use genjutsu on him. And mind you, all of this happened while Itachi was sick. In fact, Kisame went so far as to say that Itachi was overdoing it while they were in the Hidden Leaf, because Kisame was entirely aware of Itachi's limitations. It's not until Jiraiya shows up that Itachi and Kisame decide to pull out of the Hidden Leaf. And while Itachi does say that Jiraiya would give him and Kisame issues, a lot of people speculate that this was just Itachi making an excuse to make sure that Naruto would stay safe in Konoha. And honestly, I could see the argument going either way. On top of this trip to Konoha, we've also seen Itachi, while in the Akatsuki, fatally injure Yagura. And mind you, Yagura was a perfect Jinchuriki of the Three Tails Isobu. And outside of the fact of being a perfect Jinchuriki, Yagura was also able to use one of the most broken abilities in the entirety of Naruto, Water Mirror. An ability that allowed Yagura to deflect any kind of ninjutsu or physical attack, just like a Yata Mirror. However, Water Mirror also has the ability that if you're caught in its reflection, it basically makes a clone of you that you have to fight. Yagura, for all intents and purposes, is probably the strongest Mizukage of all time. And the Mizukage lineage is nothing to scoff at. Tie in the fact that Itachi was able to basically 1v1 him because Juzo thought he could block a tail beast bomb with the Executioner Blade, and the fact that at this point Itachi was heavily into his sickness and also didn't understand that he had Amaterasu yet, because when he uses Amaterasu against Yagura, he's surprised by it, meaning that you can scale Itachi pretty easily to Yagura before he even ascended to his true level of power. On top of this, Itachi's chakra control is probably the best we've seen from a non-medical ninja. You see, within the Naruto universe, if your chakra control is precise enough, you can amp a broken body to incredible feats. This is why Inoki, at almost the age of 100, is still able to battle during the Fourth Great Shinobi World War, and why Itachi, even though he was riddled with his terminal illness and his body being broken down by the overuses of MS, was able to fight at such a high level. Essentially, Itachi would control his body with minute chakra control movements. And because Itachi's chakra control was at such a high level, he was able to do one-hand or no-hand sealed jutsus, which has only really been seen by the likes of Minato, Sasuke, and possibly Kakashi, and maybe Hiruzen and Hashirama if I'm remembering correctly. On top of that, Itachi was able to amp his strength using his chakra control. That Itachi was able to, with one kunai, block a Samehara swing from Kisame. And while obviously this is an OVA and therefore isn't exactly manga canon, we're not going to put too much stake into this, but Itachi's strength and speed are genuinely no joke, and never have been. And that's without us even talking about his true trump card, his Susanoo. See, Itachi has a non-complete Susanoo, which has two weapons, one of which is the Yata Mirror, which is able to emulate any of the 5 elemental chakra releases. The Yata Mirror is essentially able to reflect any ninjutsu by matching the chakra release of the ninjutsu coming into the shield. Shoot a fireball at it, the Yata Mirror becomes fire and rejects the fireball. However, the Yata Mirror does a whole lot more than just rejecting ninjutsu. It's also said to be able to block all physical and spiritual attacks. And while spiritual has never been fully explained, it's largely assumed that spiritual refers to things like genjutsu, or even spiritual type attacks like the Reaper Death Seal. In essence, the Yata Mirror, which comes with Itachi's Susanoo, basically gives him defense against any kind of attack, which is insane when you consider the fact that behind said Yata Mirror is a Susanoo, which is already considered the best defensive jutsu in the entirety of Naruto. And in Itachi's right hand, he has the Sword of Totsuka, a legendary blade that all you have to do is pierce an enemy with it, and immediately they're sealed away in a different dimension called the Realm of Drunken Dreams. It is an instant win state. Black Setsu, arguably the most intelligent person in Naruto, said that Itachi Susanoo with the combination of the Yata Mirror and the Sword of Totsuka was invincible. And it wasn't even a fully formed Susanoo. See, in order to be a fully formed Susanoo, Itachi's Susanoo would have had to have legs and wings. However, unfortunately, this wasn't the case for Itachi's Susanoo, unless Itachi's mobility within the Susanoo was heavily limited in comparison to other Susanoos. Tie that into the fact that Itachi couldn't use his Susanoo for very long because of his chakra sickness that heavily nerfed his chakra pool, and the fact that overuse of his MS abilities is quite literally what was killing him. And you get a really cool toy, but with like a 3-minute battery life. But now that we've set the precedent for how how strong Itachi was even with his illness and just a regular MS, we can fully begin to understand how strong Itachi would have been without those limiters. The first and most obvious thing to say is that if Itachi had taken his father's MS and gained EMS, the problem of overusing his MS and that degrading away his life force never would have happened, meaning that every time that Itachi ever used Amaterasu or Tsukiyomi or Susanoo while he was in the Akatsuki wouldn't have chipped away at his life force. And this is the true tragedy of Itachi, because all of his abilities were a double-sided sword. Yes, they were incredibly powerful, but every time he used them, he got weaker. If you also take away his chakra illness, things like his speed, reaction time, dexterity, strength, and stamina would also go substantially up, meaning that his already arguably fastest in the world reaction time would get even faster. His strength would be naturally boosted, but so would his chakra assisted strength. And with his chakra control, if you gave him more chakra, what he could have achieved is almost endless. I think honestly, the most accurate comparison for what Itachi's chakra pool would have been without chakra illness is Sasuke. There's no reason for us to believe that Itachi, who has the same parents as Sasuke, would have a differing chakra pool without the illness. So honestly, I believe the best comparison for us to talk about when we're talking about a full-powered Itachi would be early War Arc Sasuke. And by early War Arc, I just mean before Sasuke gets the 6th Tome Rinnegan, because obviously the 6th Tome Rinnegan is a massive drain on Sasuke's chakra. We see it now in Boruto that basically every single time Sasuke moves his pinky finger, he's out of chakra. So in terms of ability to spam abilities, dual EMS Sasuke feels as though it would be our best comparison. And we saw from Sasuke that repeatedly forming his Susanoo or using Kagutsuchi and Amaterasu continuously wasn't really that much of an issue. Well, obviously Sasuke always had people like Karin and Jugo and even Kabuto in the end there around him to make sure that he had enough life and chakra inside of him. I'd also like to point out the fact that more likely than not, Itachi probably has more precise chakra control than Sasuke. While Sasuke is able to do one-handed hand seals in order to pull off jutsu, which has canonically been stated to only be able to be used by those with the most finely tuned chakra control, Itachi having the chakra control to basically manipulate a broken body at a high level of proficiency in taijutsu speaks to a higher level of chakra control than even just one-handed seals. So if Itachi's chakra control is higher than Sasuke's, he would probably waste less chakra when using things like the Susanoo, Amaterasu, or Tsukiyomi, which would put Itachi's stamina pool just above dual EMS Sasuke. But what about things like speed and strength and ninjutsu ability? Well, honestly, we've kind of already seen that. See, let's remember that Itachi was brought back using Edo Tensei. And with Edo Tensei, even though Itachi wasn't brought back at full power like Madara, Itachi didn't have to worry about things like his chakra sickness or the fact that he only had regular MS, since an Edo Tensei body heals itself immediately, and an Edo Tensei body has infinitely refilling chakra. So while technically Itachi was only brought back with the chakra pool he had when he died, that chakra pool continually refilled, so running out of chakra was never something that Itachi had to worry about. On top of all that, Itachi's illness was cured by being Edo Tensei, since his body was infinitely regenerating. And thus, for things like speed and strength feats, we can look at Edo Tensei Itachi as our most faithful adaptation. And the feats of Edo Tensei Itachi are undeniably very impressive. Itachi was able to go one-on-one against KCM level 1 Naruto in taijutsu. And this was without trying to use Amaterasu, Tsukiyomi, or Susanoo. Just straight up hands. Itachi then did the same exact thing against Killer Bee using his 8-sword style, which puts Itachi's speed and strength significantly higher than heavy Sasuke, since Killer Bee was able to kill Sasuke twice. Not to mention, after breaking himself out of Edo Tensei, Itachi was able to basically solo reanimated Nagato. Yes, obviously Killer Bee and Naruto were there, but they were also both about to die if not for Itachi. And this wasn't even the weakened version of Nagato we saw get reanimated. Nagato was able to pull chakra out of Killer Bee's version 2 cloak, making this Nagato not only fully under the control of Kabuto, because Kabuto stepped in to make sure that Nagato wouldn't give anybody any more tips, but arguably probably the strongest version we've ever seen of Nagato. And while obviously without the firepower of the 8 Tails and 9 Tails, Itachi probably would have been pulled into the Chibuka Tensei that Nagato was creating, the fact that in this moment that the only person who identified that the Chibuka Tensei could be destroyed using the 8 Tails and the 9 Tails firepower speaks to Itachi's insane battle IQ. But also with eyes that infinitely regenerated from the usage of Monkey Kill Sharingan abilities, Itachi was able to spam Amaterasu basically everywhere. And while Amaterasu does technically have a travel time, it does basically just appear on whatever Itachi looks at. And thus Itachi was able to cover Nagato and all of his summoning animals in Amaterasu. And let's not forget about the fact that Itachi was the reason that Kabuto released Edo Tensei. And let's not act like Sasuke helped in this fight at all. And let's also not forget that in this battle, Itachi was purposely trying to not kill Kabuto. See, people assume that Kabuto pushed Itachi and Sasuke to their limits, so much so that Itachi had to blind one of his eyes to use Izanami. But this wasn't the case. If Itachi and Sasuke had killed Kabuto, Edo Tensei never could have been released, and thus they had to fight a target who was trying to kill them without trying to kill him. And mind you, at this time, Kabuto had every single ability of the Sound Village 5, including Kimimaro Shikatsumiyaku, Sakon and Ukon's ability to completely change their molecular structure, Jirobo's ability to move Earth. He also had Jugo's Clan Keke Genkai that continuously allowed him to pull in nature chakra. He had grafted Orochimaru's cells onto his body, giving him a lot of Orochimaru's abilities. And he had studied at Ryushi Cave, making him a pseudo-perfect Snake Sage, which allowed him to funnel chakra into surrounding items to give them life. Dragon Sage Kabuto is top 15 strongest characters in Naruto, and they had to fight him without trying to kill him. Honestly, Dragon Sage Kabuto could be higher than 15, but that feels safe for the moment. So now that we've considered the entirety of Itachi's feats, how strong would he have been? Since he wasn't brought back at the peak of his powers like Madara, using his Edo Tensei feats is a little bit of a nerf for him. Well, things like his ability to spam Amaterasu and Susanoo in his Edo Tensei form are representative of what he would be like at his maximum power. More likely than not, his speed, dexterity, and strength would be higher than that of his Edo Tensei form. And since we did see Itachi run the ones in Taijutsu with KCM 1 level Naruto, the assumption that a more powerful version of Itachi would be able to run the ones with a KCM level 2 Naruto is not crazy. And that's just in Taijutsu. So Itachi would roughly have the stamina of dual EMS Sasuke, the speed and strength of KCM2 Naruto, without the addition of Sage Mode. That feels like a bridge too far. And arguably, with a completed Susanoo, either the first or second most powerful Susanoo on the face of the earth. When you consider the abilities of his 2 Susanoo weapons and the fact that with a completed Susanoo he would be able to fly, the idea of his power gets genuinely insane. Because the biggest weakness to Itachi currently is the fact that his Susanoo is largely sedentary. Well, yes, obviously Itachi can walk with his Susanoo. His 2 weapons are focused on close combat. So if hypothetically Itachi could fly to a target with his Sword of Totsuka and his Yatta Mirror, being able to deflect all incoming attacks while he flies in and then stab somebody with the Sword of Totsuka, which is a one-shot kill, mind you, there are very, very few people that could defeat that. But the real question is, who are those few people? Well, unfortunately for all of you, the answer is still Madara. At least the strongest iteration of Madara we've seen. Ten Tails Madara with a Rinne Sharingan and the ability to use Limbo clones that can have their own Susanos. Yeah, they're gonna absolutely smoke even the strongest iteration of Itachi. There's just nothing Itachi could even do about that. Honestly, when we consider Limbo clones with their own Susanoo, there's basically nothing anybody can do about that. The real question becomes, could this Itachi be alive Madara? And that, I believe, is the more genuinely interesting question. And honestly, I'm not entirely sure. It's stated that Madara, while alive, was able to fight with his MS abilities activated for 24 hours straight. The only person with a comparable chakra pull to Madara are Naruto, and Hashirama. And even if we're boosting Itachi's stamina all the way up to dual EMS Sasuke, that chakra pool is still a puddle in comparison to Madara's. But honestly, when it boils down to it, Madara doesn't have as much killability or peak defense as Itachi. Obviously, Madara has the Gunbai, a fan weapon made by a legendary Uchiha cut from a legendary tree that's able to reject all physical or ninjutsu attacks. It's honestly probably the most broken weapon in the entirety of Naruto except for the Sword of Ninabuka. I mean, it was quite literally able to blow KCM2 Naruto backwards. But this is a weapon that Madara uses in base, not in his Susanoo. Madara Susanoo just has a katana, and while this katana can cut mountains in half, it is just a regular old katana. So in terms of offensive and defensive capabilities, when we're talking about the highest level of forms between an alive Madara and a peak power Itachi, I'm giving it to Itachi. So in a short fight, Itachi, absolutely. But unfortunately, I think the only person with higher battle IQ than Itachi is Madara. I mean, it's close. They're both incredibly genius. But Madara's life is war. From the moment he was born until the moment he died, he fought, and he fought well. So honestly, where I scale a completely healthy and EMS Itachi is alive Madara. Because honestly, I feel like a battle between them is a coin flip. Itachi's best chance against an alive Madara is to end this battle as quickly as possible. And I can already hear people saying,
well, Nick, if you're comparing Itachi to dual EMS Sasuke,
dual EMS Sasuke lost to Madara with no eyes. But mind you, this was Sage Mode Madara. Madara had Hashirama's cells grafted to his chest, and he mastered Hashirama's Sage Mode immediately. While yes, he had no eyes and Sasuke still couldn't hit him, Itachi Susanoo is a lot stronger than Sasuke Susanoo. Well, until you consider things like Indra's arrow, but Sasuke could only ever use that once. So if I'm considering Itachi as the same as alive Madara, that means I also would consider this iteration of Itachi stronger than Obito. But obviously not Ten Tails Jubito, I'm talking singular MS Obito, which means that this iteration of Itachi would be stronger than the strongest forms of Madara, Obito, Kakashi, and Sasuke. Yes, I did just say that DMS Kakashi would be stronger than a non-sick and EMS Itachi. DMS Kakashi was able to fight on par with Kaguya, and I'm sorry, but a non-sick and EMS Itachi just isn't scaling that far. So while Itachi's potential is significantly greater without sickness and an EMS, without anything like a Rinnegan or Sage of Six Paths chakra, it's unfortunately impossible to scale him really any further than an alive mod. But what do you guys think? How strong do you think this strongest iteration of Itachi would truly be? Tell me in the comments below, and while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Listen, what do I know? I've only read every single piece of literature ever that's ever pertained to Itachi.